Okay, hello everyone. Welcome. Sorry, I had to just tweet out the link a little bit. I'm Thomas, joined by Joe DiMarini. I'm not going to say like Gilbert, and Steve from Farabee right now. We're talking about the trade, obviously, that just happened. All that we know right now. So apparently, kind of just it's crazy.
Ew!
Jesus Christ. So right now, Frank Cervelli, I think, tweeted just like a second ago.
Yep, he did.
So Farabee and Frost to the Flames for Pelletier, Kuzmenko, a second-round pick, and a seventh-round pick. Yeah. So that's
Yikes.
if that's it of what we're seeing, and let me put this tweet up so people can kind of see it. But if that's it, kind of what's your guys' kind of feeling? Let's talk a little bit while we kind of wait for official. But like, what's the feeling of trading Farabee and Frost, like, from either of you?
What is the point of this? I don't understand it at all. Like, I know we've talked about the need to trade Morgan Frost for having like a change of scenery. He'd do better somewhere. But like, I don't get why you trade one of the only centers you have on this team. And look, you can debate the legitimacy of him being a center all day you want. But like, the guy is still a guy who can play center, a warm body who can play center on this team and score points. And he hasn't scored a ton of points, but I don't really get it. And I like Joel Farabee's vibes. I don't really understand that. Like, none of this makes sense, especially if you're not getting like a first-round pick. Like, if you're getting a first-round pick, you were getting a center something. I get it. But like a second-round pick and a seventh-round pick and two busts, like, who cares?
So our good friend Ryan Gilbert, who should be joining us at some point, has already said that he likes this trade. I'm gonna take the mid-range and say I'm on the fence. Joel Farabee is signed through the end of the 2028 season at $5 million. If this is what he is, maybe clearing that contract off the books is the right thing to do. Morgan Frost was clearly not a part of this team's future. I know he's one of the only cromulent centers this team has, but what's the most that you're going to get for him at the deadline or in the summer for his rights? A third-round pick, maybe. Pelletier is a left winger, former first-round pick, and maybe is going to be the younger Joel Farabee at worst. Kuzmenko is just on the books till the end of this season, and maybe you can flip him at the deadline with 50% retention for something. The seventh-round pick, I don't get that. Second-round pick, sure, but I don't know whose pick it is because I think Calgary has a couple of second-round picks, so we'll see, I guess.
Joe, who's going to play center on this team? Morgan Frost is fourth on this team with 25 points. He's got 11 goals, 14 assists. Like, I don't understand this trade at all. Like, I need Danny Briere to spell this out to me like I'm 5 years old. It's 11 o'clock. It's 11:30 at night, and I'm sitting here screaming about Morgan Frost. What kind of a cruel world is this? I hate this.
You call this cruel?
Aren't you sick of it? Haven't you been sick of the Morgan Frost?
Yes.
No, it's over.
But
it is
get
over.
some value. No, it's over,
No.
But like, you got jack shit. This is nothing. This is a nothing trade. It's garbage.
He doesn't have value. He doesn't have
Garbage.
value.
He does have value. He's got 25 points. It's something.
Jacob Pelletier is value. I don't know if he can play center. I have not watched a lot of Calgary Flames hockey, admittedly. Okay, that's fine. Whatever.
Like 25.
You know what?
They have more wingers.
3 years.
We have like a whole hockey team of wingers. That's awesome.
My boy Rodrigo down the middle.
Maybe they're not done.
Rodrigo's like 30.
They're not done. They are not done. Joe,
They're not done.
Oh, I love your level-headedness here.
Okay, well, here's the thing. I don't have other moves to evaluate with this, so what I see is a trash move. This is the first Danny Briere move I have not liked.
It's a second. Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think fair value for Morgan Frost is at this point?
Yeah.
There was
Second round
reports
pick.
that he had
Second
no
round pick?
value.
I
There were
would rather
reports
just
earlier
keep
that, like,
him.
there were reports earlier that he had no value. Like that's like
Right.
a mid-round pick, which the Flyers obviously didn't want to get.
Shut
so I
up,
think
Brad.
this
I
is
see you.
definitely a this is definitely
I'm irritated.
a little
We-
like this it's just I think a change of scenery for Frost, and then Farabee is what like the actual kind of trade, which is also a semi change of scenery type of move.
Look,
Do we know
it's
what the second round pick is? Did I miss that? Do we know?
No, they
like,
haven't said yet.
Is it Colorado's? They only have
Oh.
Colorado's and
their own this
Is it
year,
their own?
and then
Okay.
next year they have their own, and the following year they have their own. So
okay.
it's probably Colorado's.
So
yeah, I would say so.
I look, not apples to apples. Taylor Hall, former MVP, just got moved for nothing from Chicago. Like, you think Morgan Frost, perennial late starter, is gonna get moved for anything of value, even with RFA control? Like, no, he's not.
Why now? Why are we doing this? What is the point of this?
Well, I don't know. Next move. Something else is in the pipeline, maybe.
This feels weird.
Look, people have been asking for tank moves. At worst, this is a tank move. At best, Peltier works out.
What's the upside on Pelletier? Like, what are we looking at? I don't know that much about this guy, I'll admit. Like, what's the positive for moving for him here? Because, like, I still just don't understand this.
26th overall pick. It's just another Morgan Frost, Joel Farabee, just a few years younger. I mean, and they don't have $5 million tied up to him for the next few years.
Yeah. Exactly.
I feel like Steve. I feel like your main point is who's going to play center, and that is a very valid point. But it's not like Morgan Frost was improving his wingers at all.
It's one of the only guys scoring points on this
He
team.
was just the default guy there.
Cool points, but he gave so much back. Like, it wasn't like he was elevating his line mates. It was just empty calorie scoring. Like, whatever.
Empty calorie scoring. Come on, Joe. Using your buzzwords over there. Oh my God.
It's the wine. It's the wine.
That is the wine. I've only had seltzers tonight, so I got not NA seltzers over here. So
summer at Steve's. Also,
Yeah.
Hey, what's up, Quigs? Welcome.
Hello, everybody. I just wanted to jump in. I'm literally in bed in the dark now, so that's why I'm laying under the covers with my. Just to give you guys a visual, my legs are crossed, like I'm lounging in the sun, but I'm under the blanket with the fan going above me because I need the white noise before I go to bed. But I wanted to just kind of talk about this real fast because is this not just a weird ass? Bizarro ass trade. Like,
so weird.
It's a strange trade. It's a strange time to make this trade. The one thing I posted this in the Slack, and then I realized that no one's in the Slack because everyone's in here. But I think I don't. So obviously I don't like this trade, but I don't despise this trade either. And I think the reason I don't despise this trade is we knew exactly what the hell Morgan Frost is. We know he's at best a middle six forward, not even a center.
Right.
I think he's best suited on the wing. So we know what he is. Joel Farabee has not taken the step forward that the Flyers have wanted to see the last several years. Now, there's a reason for that. He had the next situation, and then, he has had a couple injuries, and him and Torts just haven't meshed or vibed or however you want to describe it. But he hasn't taken a step forward, and you look at this. How do you pronounce the young kid's name coming from Calgary? Pelletier. Looking at his numbers, he looks like basically Morgan Frost. I have a
couple of Flames friends. Flames fan friends.
Nice, easy for you to say.
Yeah, thank you. And one just said, Pelletier almost left the NHL completely after his injury last year because he was too tentative to play anything resembling physical play. So that's
Jesus
cool.
Christ. This sounds awesome, guys.
That's real.
This sounds like a clear win to me. Look, I know I'm being dramatic, but like the fact of the matter is, like, I don't like the give up move, okay? And this is what this feels like to me. This is a give up on two.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, Frost. Okay, we've got issues with Frost. Farabee's a guy we like the vibes of. Like, I know he hasn't clicked with Torts' system like we want him to, but like, I like Joel Farabee, and I don't like giving up on Joel Farabee for like very little. Like, I like this move a lot for the Flames because you're getting two guys that have potential upside that you can work with. Like Frost, you can stick him lower in the lineup than he should be. He's been playing too high in the lineup with the Flyers. His biggest problem. Yeah. Frost, you can put him lower and maybe develop him a little better. You might even be able to play him at wing where he really should play. Mm-hmm. And Farabee, like, he needed a change of scenery bad. I just wish the Flyers had gotten something a little bit better back. Like, both the guys bother me. If it was just one of the guys, okay, I accept it. But like both the guys, why?
I wouldn't hate it if it was like the first round pick, but it's like that second round pick, and it's just like, and I tweeted a little bit earlier about, now the Flyers for this year's draft, they have 7 draft picks in the first 2 rounds alone. It's almost as if they're stockpiling ammunition to do something with, but like, what are you gonna like? You need to actually do something with it, though, and I just don't know if they're actually going to do anything with it.
And that's what bothers me. Like, I don't have faith that they're going to do something with it at this point because I've been burnt so bad by this team stockpiling stuff in the past. Like, what are they going to do with it? And the other thing that bothers me is like when you hear about like the negotiation or not negotiations, but the rumors with Vancouver with like Pedersen, you keep hearing they want established NHL talent. Like they want NHL ready talent. And like, the Flyers have 1 million draft picks, but it's not helping them get Pedersen.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's fair to say that this front office is not going to do anything with those draft picks. When has this Flyers front office ever had that many draft picks?
I was just about to make that point. I was just about to say.
Well, we don't know either way is the thing. We don't know either way.
Yeah. But knocking this Flyers front office for the failures of the previous Flyers front offices is not fair to them. If they fuck this up, and we will rake them over the coals for it. But until they do it, I'm like, they might have something else cooking on those coals. All right, I'm willing to let this play out. Like the timeline is longer than we might like, but I think we just got to be along for the ride at this point. And the worst case scenario, they make 7 picks in the first 2 rounds this summer.
I don't care about second round picks right now.
Yeah. Also, the draft's not super deep. Like, you're not getting game-changing talent, I think, in the second round this year. They've said that before, and you found Stankoven or whatever. But I think it's hard to see Frost and Farabee move in this type of deal, especially together. Like we've been saying, it's just we were thinking about like potential moves even back to the summer about like, oh, what could Joel Farabee get you? Like you're thinking of like Trevor Zegras and Farabee would be the centerpiece around the return. And then for him to come up and be like, okay, the return for both Farabee and Frost is now a rental guy who you might be able to get a 3rd round pick for at the deadline. And then a prospect who was on waivers recently. And then a 2nd and a 7th round pick. Which you could just it's hard to see this move as anything other than purely just moving on from the players, and then also the benefit of the increased future cap space of Farabee because now you have $5 more million to play with. So.
Right. When I first joined this chat, someone, I think it was you, Steve. Steve was talking about who's going to play center. And I think it's funny that not even 2 weeks ago, Danny Briere got on the podium and he said, like, we're trying to get ourselves a center. We're trying to bolster our center depth. And then I just think it's funny that less than 2 weeks after he said that, they traded 2 forwards, Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost, who is one of their only possibly functional centers, and got 2 wingers in return. And it's just a weird, it's weird. Nothing seems to be lining up quite the way that you would think that they would. So it's just a bizarre trade. It's a weird time for it. I think today, like, I don't know. It's just, I mean, you can never predict when a trade's going to happen, but like it's an odd move from in so many angles, and if they went out and they got a center, totally different story. I think you could argue that it would make sense at that point, but the fact that there's no center coming back, it's like, okay, well, why'd you do that?
Well, maybe the third team rumors still, like, the third team wasn't involved in this particular transaction, but maybe there is some other deal that's floating around in the ether that could still come to fruition. Also, I think the Carolina Hurricanes trading for Rantanen, I don't think it made other teams like think they needed to do something right now, but the thought process behind it, get this player before the Four Nations, see what they look like with the roster, then go into the deadline and figure out what you're going to do. I know that the Flames aren't exactly in like contending position, and the Flyers certainly are not, but it does help you get an idea of what your roster could look like post deadline. So
I think that's completely unrelated to the Flyers right now. Like, the Flyers don't care what their roster looks like. And I think right now it's fine to not have a firm stance on this trade. Like, sure, something might happen again, but I mean, Joe, you weren't around for the Hartner for Umberger thing where it's like, okay, where's the second shooter drop on this? And there was no second shooter drop, and that was awful. And Briere, this is Briere's first big test. Like, yeah, they could have definitely got more for Farabee and Frost. They could have got a Zegras, maybe a Rossi, who knows, maybe a Cousins. Like, if they got back, if Pelletier was a center, that would be completely different. But they got back Pelletier. They got back Kuzmenko, who you don't know if he's in their long-term plans. You don't know if that's a flip kind of situation there. I do hope there's a second trade to come here, but I don't know. I feel like this front office has bought some sort of goodwill with me at the very least. And it's important to remember that Farabee is not a Briere guy. He was drafted by either Hextall or Fletcher, got the contract from Fletcher, has not lived up to that $5 million contract. And his agent is either the same as Cutter Gauthier or the same agency. So
right, Kurt Overhart.
Yeah, the return is underwhelming. Like, I will absolutely admit that, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm giving more leeway than Briere deserves.
Let me spin zone this. Let me really take the optimistic. Let me do this. Let me try to work the masterclass this. Okay. I think you could reasonably say, in a vacuum, Kuzmenko and Farabee are the same player right now. Take out age, take out the contract's basically the same, the cap hit, but obviously Farabee's on for longer. What they are playing right now on the ice, I think they are the similar players, but Kuzmenko has shown higher heights when he's around talent. Again, he was playing with Elias Pettersson and Brock Besser. Flyers don't have those type of players. Well, Connected's kind of whatever. That's semantics, but I think Kuzmenko could blossom and do more for the Flyers this season than Farabee could right now. So you could say that's a wash. And then you get the added benefit of going away from Farabee's contract, because then the Flyers probably definitely don't see him coming back into a high level of production that warrants that contract that an old regime gave him. That's the spin zone. And then also you get Pelletier. They might see something else in him. Again, he's mainly played on the right side. Like tonight, he was playing on the top line on the right side with Kadri and Huberdeau. I don't see where he would fit really. Like if Tippett's gone for a long time, maybe he just they shuffle things around. Forster goes on the right kind of thing. But I think they get a guy that they've maybe been looking at, but it's kind of just a throw in, see what he can do. And if not, then he's sent on waivers and down in the AHL again. And then you get a second round pick and a 7th round pick, and the second's fine value, just another kind of top 90, top 60, whatever pick.
Now, I had to step away for a moment because my dog was being mischievous and stealing things. But did we discuss this Darren Dreger tweet yet about basically like Kuzmenko being like a part of the reasoning in it?
No, we didn't, but I did just see that pop up on my phone.
So Kurt put this in the BSH Slack. He said, this is from Darren Dreger, said, 2nd round pick is for this year and 7th round is 2028, which I can't even fathom.
Not a real year.
Reuniting Kuzmenko with Mishkov is part of the reasoning in this. Pelletier is a player with passion. Calgary also gets 2 motivated players with opportunity. So, if we are putting the positive spin on it, getting a buddy for Mishkov, which has been like,
Yeah.
what is it going to be half the guys on the team at this rate, was part of it. And like, I do like the idea of having somebody who could have some pre-existing chemistry with him. I guess that this is also my concern, like with losing some center depth this year, is just thinking about Mishkov's development. We've already hit some, bumps in the road recently. Tonight, we're looking at John Tortorella giving him that, they had that spat on the bench tonight, So I guess like it's cool that they got a guy who has some chemistry with him and some history, but like I still need to have proper depth to play center. And maybe you do like a Bowles in there. Maybe Rowdy Roddy is like a guy you can keep up a little longer, but like I'm not inspired by what's going on right now. And I don't like trading away a guy who actually has some points for you, even if I have been immensely frustrated by his play.
Yeah, I think this also needs to signal the Flyers just selling. Like, I feel like I've discussed this with Joe on the podcast that Risto being traded is like 60-40 at the deadline. I feel like now the Flyers might lose some of their leverage. I think that's another negative thing here where, like, they're clearly selling. They traded Farabee. They traded Frost. All they had left to sell is, maybe Kuzmenko and then Risto. They have to trade Risto, I think, at this point. They're not trading Lawton, and that's all they have. Mm-hmm. And I think there are going to be enough buyers for Risto where we could see him moved. I wouldn't be surprised if he's moved in the next week based on how Briere has been moving. But I think they trade Risto for a center, maybe a Cousins, maybe a Maverick Bourque down in Dallas with Heiskanen being out. Maybe they do a big swing in Vancouver and something like that. But I feel like that is what needs to be the next step. And if this is it for the Flyers at the deadline, it's a loss. It's just a loss. This cannot be it. But yeah, I do like Briere clearing the cap space. There are restricted free agents. I know offer sheets aren't a real thing that actually happen, but Briere's clearing the cap space. And this is a rebuild. The Flyers are not making the playoffs this year. The Flames should not be making the playoffs this year, so they should have a top 15 pick in the second round. So I don't love it, but I also don't hate it at this point. It's like a wait and see.
You brought up Heiskanen, and with his injury, Risto is maybe going to be the de facto number one defenseman on Team Finland. He might be getting power play one time on Team Finland. I don't know if the trade will happen before Four Nations, but like, you want to showcase Rasmus Ristolainen, Four Nations might be the opportunity to do it. So they might hold off on a Risto trade until after that to see how he does, or they'll cash in beforehand and he face plants on the power play for them. We'll see.
Is there any salary retention in this deal?
No, Pierre just confirmed it.
Okay. So. All right. So I mean, that's a good positive. I think it's just we talk about, are they done, right? I do not think they can be done. I'm with Gilbs here. Like, I truly don't think they can be, because, like, I mean, first of all, and I know it's 2 games, it's 2 days, but like the way they have played the last week and a half, and then last night, and then tonight, just awful, dreadful, ghastly performances, and it just makes you wonder, like, are they actually, can we trust this team, and can management trust this team enough to turn things around before the trade deadline? I don't think you realistically can. So in that situation, like, if the trade deadline's coming, or it's before Four Nations, and you got a team saying, yo, how about Risto? We'll give you a first. Like, I feel like you have to take it. You have to take it. And even better yet, we were talking about Vancouver. They want to have NHL ready players right now. Could Risto be someone involved in that? And could the Flyers throw in 2 or 5 of their 7 first or second round draft picks that they have in this year's draft?
Correct.
Like, to go get Elias Pettersson. Like, these are moves that the Flyers have to have the balls to make right now. And because they have not had the balls to make a move like this, like that in years, since Paul Holmgren. So, maybe this is the Flyers setting the table to do something wild and crazy. But until we see that happen, precedent over the last decade suggests that not much is going to come of this, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, I'm not liking it in a vacuum, but I guess we'll see. And that's the big thing for me. Like, what is this part of? Where does this go? Like, I'm really curious to see what Danny Briere says about this whenever he speaks, which I assume will be tomorrow. But to hear what his comments are, to hear why, because I guess my biggest thing is like, why now? And like, why those two, like, again, we all know Frost had to move out at some point, right? Like, we all feel this way about Frost, but why now? Why those guys? I have a lot of why questions that I need answered.
Yeah, I think I honestly, obviously I can't like predict what he's gonna say, but I think it's really just a moving on from players that they don't see as a fit. Like it's these guys I think were clearly at the bottom of the group of guys that we put before the season of like, let's see what the next step of these guys are going to take. It was Frost, Tippett, Forrester, Farabee, whatever, Cates even. And it was just like, let's see who kind of, how it shuffles throughout the season. And now that we're over 50 games in, I think now they kind of decide to be like, okay, well, Farabee and Frost, I think we all could see we're at the bottom. So it kind of makes sense that they'd move on. But I think this trade way before like we were originally thinking that they would do these moves. Like I was going to assume that Frost would be traded, but I didn't think that he'd be traded this soon. Maybe to the deadline, but like maybe just for a pick. But Frost and Farabee together, especially in the same deal, like it just signals being like, okay, here's a great shift to Tippett, Forrester, Cates, York, whatever. That's our kind of next crop of RFA kind of guys, the mid-20s. And then we moved on from these guys that we don't see a future with. And we got assets that are definitely future-focused and then also short-term of like Kuzmenko might be able to score. If he scores 15 goals for the rest of the season, then like that's pretty damn good. And like maybe they could keep him around for like $2 million or something. Like I don't know. I think it's a stopgap of like maybe you could think about this season, but then also like really clear out and become more flexible in the summer.
Thomas, 15 goals for the rest of the season for Kuzmenko would be amazing.
I don't know math.
You know how many points he has on the season? 15.
Put him on the power play. You know, the shittiest power play in the world.
He's
put him
got
on there.
15 points and he's going to the shittiest power play in the
Andrei
world.
Kuzmenko is the
Don't
answer
feel
to power
good
play.
about it.
Yeah.
I'm the master of spin zoning. I'll like.
So,
Farabee's got 19, okay?
Yeah.
Oh,
something I want to
did.
say about
Go ahead.
Andrei Kuzmenko is that, like, I think it might have been Gibbs earlier talking about like maybe like flipping him at the deadline. I feel like the Flyers are not getting Kuzmenko unless it's for multiple years because of the Mishkov effect.
That's the only thing I don't. That's why I don't think he's gonna get flipped. But I don't see
I don't think
like
so.
like that's the wrinkle of like if it was anyone else, if it was like Brad Smith from Calgary. I just said Calgary because I was the Flames, but like he was from Des Moines, Iowa, or whatever. Like I think he's easily be like, okay, this is just throw in and then moving on. But because it's Kuzmenko and he waived to go to Philly, I think it's a different kind of feeling.
Yeah. I think he does have that connection with Mishkov. Like they are fellow countrymen. Like maybe there is that aspect of maybe they could develop some chemistry together or add on to the chemistry that they previously had over in Russia. So that's a factor. And I do think that they're not making this trade unless there's some sort of deal under the table of like, hey, we're going to re-sign you for like 2 more years at the end of this season or whatever it is. Like,
Another
granted, like,
Fedotov
I don't want
It's-
that.
yeah,
I don't want that.
I don't necessarily want it either, but like if it's
Before
at
we
a
play the
discounted
game.
price, and then it turns out that he and Mish do have some good chemistry, and it turns out that Kuzmenko can score in the NHL like he did in his quote unquote rookie year with Vancouver, then I mean that would be good. But it just doesn't seem like this Kuzmenko addition is one where they're going to be like, all right, we got him. We're going to trade him away. It seems like this is something they're very much doing to make Matvei Mishkov a little more comfortable and just kind of see what happens over the next year, maybe 2 years. At least that's my read on it.
Yeah, I hate to admit it, but I do agree with Thomas's point that Kuzmenko and Farabee are a very good like replacement there. Like Kuzmenko, yeah, just go on the wing with Michkov. But the issue is, as Steve has pointed out time and time again, is who's going to play center? You have Couturier, you have Cates, you have Abels, and maybe Palin comes back. Maybe you move Lawton over there, but they have to do something like. And their next game is in Colorado. They're going to just skate it off the ice.
We gotta,
guys, we gotta watch. They score a billion points.
We gotta watch months more of this team. We gotta watch something.
This can't continue. Like this group of centers. I'm just getting triggered now because like I just started thinking about the centers again. Like this cannot continue in the next season. They have to come into the next season with a completely different cast of characters at center. Like Sean Couturier, like you can't get rid of him, obviously, but like, you know, if they come into next year with Scott Lawton as a center, Ryan Poehling as a center, and Sean Couturier as a center, and then just some random ass man.
Casey,
bud.
Center. Like, let's not forget about Noah Cates.
I understand, but like, Jesus Christ, I love Noah Cates. He is a middle six center. Like,
I agree. I prefer him at wing. I prefer almost all of their centers at wing.
They badly. And listen, we were just talking about it. Danny Briere says that he even said we need to get a center. Like that's their number one priority. Get out there and fucking do it. Do something.
It's hard.
So
what centers out there would you guys be excited about, or even Flyers fans? Because like I've seen people, Dylan Cousins is out there. Marco Rossi, they're not getting Elias Pettersson. They're not getting JT Miller. I'll tell you that much there. But
I don't want
maybe
JT Miller.
Like I feel like it's like
Zegras is probably
yeah. Even Zegras I don't really want.
But who are they giving up for Zegras now? They got rid of the default.
They got rid of the picks.
Frost guys.
Hey, Kuzmenko, Pelletier, a second and a seventh.
That's what it would say. Exactly what it takes to get Joel Farabee.
Lord, fear me strength.
Steve and I were talking about this on Flyperbole. Dog, I am so incredibly bullish about Marco Rossi. It's not even funny. Like, I would do a lot of crazy shit to get Marco Rossi because I truly believe in him as a player. Like, I think he is a very good top six center. And, like, listen, is he a 1C? I don't know. I'm not sure about that. But there's no denying that Marco Rossi is a hell of a player.
Ryan McNally's got the right idea.
I would kill to have him on the team.
Yeah, I don't see them going for their long.
All right.
Did we lose Thomas?
There has been some
It's been
lag.
going a little bit. It's
Thomas,
the Canadian
we
internet.
It's the.
You're not muted.
Bell, let's talk.
Thomas, get out of the woods of Canada.
Yeah, there he is.
There he is. Yeah, there he is.
My shitty mic. I was gonna say I don't think they're getting their like long-term Rossi Cousins like top six center in the middle of this season. I think they're thinking about it with like a lot more patience than I think the whole fan base has. Because it's just been like a weird process, and especially with this trade where it's like, okay, what's happening now? I think this is just going to take way longer. They're going to draft and develop a bunch of centers, and we've already seen in the draft, like they took a bunch of them. They took like 3 centers in a row with their first 3 picks, and then they're just going to like or 3 of their first 4, whatever. They're just going to like let everyone filter, can take a bunch of centers, and then really play this long game. And then at most maybe get like a stopgap center, like I don't even fucking know a name off my head, like a Jean-Gabriel Pajot. Like I don't fucking know.
No,
so bad.
John Tavares, baby.
That'd be so bad.
Writing
John Tavares, Matt Duchene.
JT Pajot is righting the wrongs of Chuck Fletcher not acquiring him at the deadline in 2020. That's just like retroactive.
Nate Thompson, Derek Grant, good times.
I think they beat the Islanders if they have Pajot, and then. I mean, who was after that?
If this trade results in Danny Briere acquiring a center in the offseason, this is a good trade.
I agree. Now, folks, I got to jump because I am exhausted. But number one, I agree with. I would love to see what the next like 4 moves are in this 5D chess game here. So that's a big part of it. I'm very curious to see what Briere's comments are. I'm sorry, not sorry for coming out all fiery, but frankly, we were following this trade for like 3 hours.
Yeah.
And the speculation was all over the place. And I was pissed off. Okay. I was pissed off that that's all the trade was for, because I wanted to be for so much more. So I think I was just like really just like pissed off about just the end result here. So, hey, I get a little fiery. I get a little passionate. But that's why we're all Flyers fans here. But I'm going to sign off, friends. You enjoy. Listen to all of our respective podcasts. And we'll do this again sometime soon.
See you, Steve.
See you, Steve.
I think it was mentioned, but I just want to hear Danny Briere's explanation for all of this. Like, what him and Keith Jones have been very good about explaining their logic and reasoning behind why they've made the moves they've made. So if they have a good reason, I'm open to hearing it.
I feel like this is also the first trade that really John Tortorella may have his hand in quite heavily, because we know how he has been with Morgan Frost, and I don't think Danny Briere is necessarily going to say that, but I imagine they'll have a press conference Friday or Saturday, something about it, and that could be it. And I don't think any of us expected Morgan Frost to be here next year, but as we've said, this might be an underwhelming return, and it does depend on what happens in these next few weeks. Like, I would not be surprised if they have some sort of handshake deal involving Risto, as long as he doesn't get hurt at Four Nations. So that would be big. That would be big, especially, they brought up Jennings, rumblings about Andrei. Like, they can bring up Helge Grans. Like, they have guys. And this, as I said before, this is signaling they have to sell. Like, so Risto has to go. Hopefully it doesn't, lose their leverage too much, but they should take advantage of this mushy middle, the parity, and just sell what they can.
So I just looked up Jacob Peltier, and he is 5'9", 160. What this signals to me is that Bobby Brink is on his way out, because that's like the exact that is the exact stature of Bobby Brink. Bobby Brink was drafted like 5 picks after Peltier. Like,
yeah, Brink is better than Pelletier. Like,
you're trying to trigger me, Joe. It's too late.
Pelletier was in the AHL this year. Like, played most.
Yeah,
of
he was waived.
Yeah, I'm not ready to say that about
He's
Bobby
waived.
Brink
Yeah.
yet.
No, I know.
Another big question we have
Can't
to
tell
ask
for
now that Morgan Frost is gone, folks. How is Morgan Frost leaving the bathroom? Toilet up, toilet seat down. What's his lasting impression? Is he going to be a toilet seat lever upper?
I think he's a lever upper at the end of this. Toilet seat up. Toilet seat up.
Stock up for Morgan Frost on his way out the bathroom door. All right.
So Scott Taylor in the chat makes a good point of Farabee. They didn't see Farabee as a top 6, and then he says, "Listen to me." So I am Scott. Don't worry. They love Alex Bump, and that's a point that I think I've made in the Slack before. Not to like boost my own opinions, but I've said before, like Bump, like they like Bump so much, and he's a perfect left wing that could exactly like replicate Farabee's game. And I think he's going to be turned pro probably like at the end of his college season. So Flyers will get another winger and then probably start in the AHL. But next season, I think they could easily replace, I think, what Farabee brought with Bump, and kind of he's a little bit more dynamic, I would say, than Farabee was or is, whatever, for the Flyers. But yeah, I really like Bump. I think that obviously the Flyers really like Bump because they bring him up so often. But yeah, I think he definitely has a future, kind of a shortcut to replacing and being like that third line left winger that's just like so easily to a shoe to fill. And that's why Kuzmenko is not re-signing. But
yeah, Scott also brought up a good point about the cap. Morgan Frost is due a raise. I don't know how much he's going to be worth, but like him plus Farabee could be up to 10 million against the cap for like a couple middle sixers. Like, I don't know. That doesn't seem the best utilization of cap space. So,
yeah. I think because they're so tight to the cap also, like not tight, but they are obviously thinking about it with obviously bonuses and stuff with Mitchkov coming up. I think that obviously played a part of it, and maybe they were looking at committing more long-term, obviously, to York, so that would take up a good portion, and having $5 million of it owed to Farabee next season, while they're like, well, York, we would want to use some of that for York and
Forster too.
Well, yeah, and if they want to commit to Forrester longer term than what people were thinking about making it a bridge deal, I think the added side effect of a trade like this, this is, I think, the whole point of the trade is like, it's obviously flexibility and in both financially and with the roster, but this trade feels like that was the main point of it, rather than getting value back for these guys. I think that's where people that's where the gripes come. And I could see both sides of well, these were valued assets, in our minds, and what we got back for them was disappointing. And then for the typical side effects of oh, well, they gain cap flexibility, and oh, well, this, and oh, well, now this brings another opportunity for a younger player who could actually be part of the team for a longer period than Farabee. That's usually what comes again as a side effect, as an afterthought of oh, we traded Farabee for a first round pick, perfect. Yep. That kind of shifts the focus, and we got value for value. For that to be the main focus, though, and for that to be really the point that Briere will probably be talking a lot about oh, well, this is now an opportunity for other players. Maybe Tuamala comes up later in the season when he's then scores a little bit more consistent. For that to be the main focus, it's a little bit. I could see how that's hard to hear. I could see how that is a little bit trickier and harder to get a grip on and really digest.
I think when it's all said and done, this is going to be a net neutral trade. It's going to just be average. Nobody's going to win it. Nobody's going to necessarily lose it. And that's going to make fans pissed off because you want to win every single trade, right? The other thing is, it doesn't just free up cap flexibility for this summer. It frees it up for the next 3 years. So if suddenly a big free agent fish or a trade is available with a guy who has a massive contract, the Flyers now have space, not just this summer, but for 3 years in the future, that they can now put towards maybe a higher end talent that they think they can acquire. So,
it opens up more possibilities,
and not just this summer, long term, long term, way longer term than fans are used to trying to think. We just saw the Flyers get shut out 2 games in a row, and we're saying this whole thing is fucked. You got to blow it up. Torts is a shit coach. Just cut your losses and run. But that's not how you build a team. You don't build it off the back of 2 shutouts. You build it on a lot more than that. So this is a much longer term move than I think we can appreciate right now in the heat of the moment.
Yeah, that flexibility, I think, also answers the question of why it happened now. And you might want to ask, why did it happen now and not in 2 weeks or right before the deadline? But it's why it happened now and not over the summer, because they get Kuzmenko. They get a look at him, how he plays with Michkov, how he meshes with Tortorella, what center he might get with him. Sure, maybe he sticks around, maybe they flip him, maybe they end up just letting him walk. But that's a look at somebody, and they get that $5 million off the books, where Farabee had that $5 million for another few years, and they need to use that money towards a center. Looking at the free agents this upcoming summer, Sam Bennett, I feel like is going to be a decent target. I think, Thomas, you mentioned him in the Slack as well. I don't know if he'll want to come to Philly.
I just see him as a quintessential late 20s Flyer free agent signing. He's going to sign for 6.5 by 7 or something.
Yeah, and even if the Flyers overpay him, they're in a time where they need that second line center to overpay to help these wingers come along, and that's fine. Or bring Claude home. I would love that. Bring him home to either play center or play wing. And then looking at next summer, as Joe brought up, you got Martin Necas is going to be a free agent. He can potentially play center. You got
Kirill Kaprizov,
Connor McDavid, Jack Eichel, Kaprizov, also free agents. Panarin as well, if he wants to sign a short-term deal to come play with Michkov there. And ultimately, I wonder if Ivan Rabikin is going to be one of the Flyers picks with their Avalanche or Oilers pick, because it seems like he could
even slip to the second. I think people are saying that.
Yeah.
his stock has tanked a lot, and I feel like coming to play with Michkov could definitely motivate him. So I would not mind that whatsoever, especially if Kuzmenko is willing to take, a pay cut and take like a 2-3 year deal to see what he can do.
Something else to note, and this is really important. Andrei Kuzmenko is as close as the Flyers are going to get to a player wearing the number 69. He wears the number 96. No player in the NHL has worn 69 since like 2011 or something.
Was it Greg McKay? No, was it Greg McKay?
I can't remember who it was, but he's 96, which is virtually 69.
Yeah. Do you know who else wears 96?
Mikko Rantanen.
Rantanen.
So
also wears 96.
if we squint a little bit, the Flyers traded for Mikko Rantanen.
Yeah, they did.
Honestly, if you think about it, Mikko Rantanen rhymes a lot with Andrei Kuzmenko.
Yeah. Who's going to score more goals for the rest of the season? Mikko Rantanen or Andrei Kuzmenko? I think I know my answer.
You know what would actually be kind of funny is if Andrei Kuzmenko actually scores more goals than Mikko.
How many did he score that 1 year? 39?
Yeah.
And last year he went to Calgary and scored 14 in like 29 games. Like he went there and just went
he was really
off.
good.
It's just this season, which like probably is probably miserable playing on like a Calgary team. Well, they kind of made the playoffs, but or trying to.
They're not making the playoffs. Come on.
They might.
Dustin Wolf, baby, Calder. It's weird. I don't know what to say anymore about this.
Yeah, I mean,
I just think my last thought is that this is the start of a series of moves.
Yeah.
And I don't know when those next moves will happen. I don't know if it'll be the trade deadline. I don't know if it'll be before Four Nations. I don't know if it'll be at the draft. But this is setting some other future things up, which is like a no shit Sherlock statement. But like, I really think this is kind of setting the stage for what is going to become a very active next several months to half year for Danny Briere.
Yeah, I think, and also this is like the first move that Danny really had like, and I think we've touched on it a little bit already, but like I think this is the first move that really kind of was, it felt more like Danny Briere's like, this is my thought process, rather than like, okay, Sean Walker was obvious, like we've already said that. Even the Ivan Provorov one, it was fairly obvious to move on for Provorov to like for the locker room, but then also like, here's an asset that is still fairly highly guarded. Let me trade him before like that. Yeah, let me just move that. So then I think this is really kind of making a stamp on the team that Briere and Jones want to see, and then Farabee and Frost is just not part of that. An interesting wrinkle also. Anthony DeMarco is just tweeting. Main objective of this move for Flyers was moving off of Joel Farabee's contract with no retention.
Wow.
Even went as far as I'd say Frost was more for the second. Farabee was a salary dump.
Wow.
Which also makes like, as soon as I saw that, I was like, I guess it makes sense. Like if you had in a vacuum of like, here is a winger that has been scored 19 points in 50 games, and he's making $5 million for the next 3 seasons.
Yeah.
Like in a vacuum, even though like first round pedigree, had the potential, he scored 50 points last year. This is what he's at right now. Like, do you really want to acquire that player? Not really. Like, do you think? I think it's more. Farabee might be more of like, let's get him, and this is taking a gamble.
Yeah.
And that's the best the Flyers could do because teams don't want to take on that much money, especially now. Like Joe, you touched on the rant, like a post-Rantanen world we're living in. That like now teams might be like, we could get Mitch Marner maybe, so we need to save every dollar. We're not spending $5 million on a random dude. So yeah, I could see it from that point of view. Or it's just like trying to soften the blow a little bit. But it's a lot of money moved out, and then like no future money beyond this season brought in. Like Pelletier is not going to be anything. So
also, I know everybody's joking about Pelletier got waived by the Flames. Joel Farabee got scratched for what, 2-3 games by this team? Like, look, like it's It might end up just being a wash, and that's real sad because I was a big Farah believer and
Fair believer.
Farah believer. man.
What do we think are the odds that one of Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee, or both, kind of ball out in Calgary?
I think Frost could.
I mean,
Yeah,
Frost
I
could.
think Frost
Like-
definitely is going to go ham.
yeah, they're going
I
to ball
really
out.
do.
But they're not going to make the playoffs. It's going to be it'll be fine. Like it's not going to be a situation where they go and win multiple Stanley Cups like we saw with Mike Richards and Jeff Carter in LA. Like
Patrick Sharp.
they're going to go to Calgary. They're going to be on the playoff bubble. Get some points there, but
Yeah.
that's going to be it. And good for
I'm
them.
ready
Like
for-
I wish no ill will towards either of them. Like they're
Oh,
both.
for
Oh,
sure.
no,
both-
not at all.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
exactly. Like, yeah,
I do.
Go ahead.
I'm just kidding.
I'm prepared for the Flyers fan base to see Morgan Frost have a couple 2-goal games and average
Yeah.
over the next couple months.
Oh my
be
God,
almost a point per game player, and they're gonna all freak out.
Quigs, you just solved it. What team does Morgan Frost absolutely demolish every time he plays them? It was the Arizona Coyotes, now the Utah Hockey Club. Guess who's in the same conference as the Calgary
boy.
Flames?
Oh
There you
no!
Joe's
Oh.
cracked it.
4 times a year, they are going to see Morgan Frost absolutely eviscerate the Utah Hockey Club, and they're going to think this is the greatest player in the NHL. And then for the other 78 games of the year, they're going to be like, this is a toilet seat.
Down.
Down.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they both returned to the Farg on March 4th. Flames come home. So we'll see.
Wow.
March
Oh.
4th.
There.
Okay, I was gonna ask.
Yeah, March
Yeah,
4th.
okay.
Right
Doesn't
before the deadline.
Right before
Trade
the deadline.
Kuzmenko back.
Yeah.
Oh,
Just-
Whoa.
I wonder.
Right
I wonder
before
if
the
Danny called
deadline.
trade backs on this one.
Oh, that's actually hilarious.
Undo.
That really is really
Yeah.
funny how that's
Undo.
lining up.
Yeah, but I mean,
Wow.
the Flyers now have 7 picks, likely in the top 50 or so in this draft, and they're not going to use all of them. They're going to use them to trade
No.
up to get that top end talent that the Flyers need, that Briere knows the Flyers need, and
Yes.
Flyers fans know they need. So
Yeah.
the rest of the year is going to suck, especially these next few games before, or if they don't trade for a center. But that's what it is. This is a rebuild. You got to live with it.
Draft
Yep.
capital is called capital for a reason. It's basically money.
Yeah.
Use those assets to buy players.
And
That's
honestly, if they do
I
what
mean-
they did last year and they traded the Florida pick for the Edmonton pick this season, if they trade some of those picks for next year's first or second rounds in a straight swap, I wouldn't hate that either. Kick it, maybe a player becomes available and you can use those picks to trade for someone better next year, or maybe the draft is deeper and better and you could get a better player. I don't hate the idea of just swapping picks for another year with a contender.
Yeah. I honestly, getting another high, decent pick could also be an offer sheet. They could literally try to do that.
Please.
And there's a ton of RFAs that are really interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Rossi is one, but obviously all 4 of us would go crazy for that. But
Johnston.
yeah, there's Wyatt Johnston's a crazy one. And I think the limit is it's 6.8 to 9.1 is a first, second, and a third. I think any center that's up as an RFA this season, Flyers do that easily.
Notice. On
Yeah.
notice, other NHL GMs. You have been put on notice by the
And,
Flyers.
I'd rather pay Marco Rossi $7.5 million if I had to than have Farabee $5 million on the cap next year. That's just some basic math. Is there anything else anyone has to say about the trade, or should we save all the other future takes for BroadStreetHockey.com?
I will just conclude with saying I was wrong, because on the podcast earlier this week, I said that Rasmus Ristolainen was the last opportunity the Flyers would have to get a premium draft asset. Apparently not. They got a second-round pick. I was wrong.
Wow, what an idiot.
I'm such a dummy, man.
Definitely don't listen to that podcast.
Look, listen, my biggest disappointment out of this entire thing is that they did not get the one player that I truly, absolutely wanted in Philadelphia.
Connor McDavid.
And that is, Jake Bean.
Oh my god, I'm close. I'm deleting the VOD.
You got to be kidding me.
Oh, let's go. BSH After Dark, baby.
No, I feel like I've repeated my take 2 or 3 times, so I'm not going to repeat it again.
Yeah, we've just been running in circles. Okay.
Yeah.
Read more, BroadStreetHockey.com. $5, 16 cents a day. $5 a month. Sorry, not $5.16 a day. $5 a month gets you all the access to all our takes and wonderful paid content. Yeah, Ryan, Joe, it's been a pleasure, and Steve, obviously, thank you for joining us. Yeah, any parting words?
Thomas, thank you for hosting and setting this up.
No problem.
Go
Live
Flyers.
live from Canada. Okay,
Go Birds.
go Birds.
Birds.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey.